We all fear what waits beneath the surface. Not just death, but what comes after. In myth, that shadow had a name, Hades. Today, people hear his name and picture fire. Screaming. Punishment. A horned figure ruling over eternal damnation. But that's not mythology. That's misunderstanding. Hades was never a devil. He wasn't a villain. He wasn't evil. He was balance. He was law. He was the only god who stayed in his place, while others chased glory. This is the story of the real Hades. Not the cartoon. Not the fire god. But the one who ruled silence. With eyes that saw everything. To understand him, we must go back to the beginning. Before Olympus. Before the gods ruled anything. The rise of the gods. Long before Olympus stood in the clouds, the universe was ruled by titans. And one of them, Cronus, feared his fate. He had been told that one of his children would overthrow him. So, he did the only thing a fearful god would do. He swallowed them. One by one. Hestia. Demeter. Hera. Hades. Poseidon. Gone. Devoured whole. But fate doesn't bend that easily. Rhea, their mother, hid her youngest son, Zeus. And when Zeus came of age, he rose up against Cronus, forced him to vomit up the swallowed gods, and began the war that would end an era. The Titanomachy. For 10 years, the sky shook with thunder and fire. The Titans held the old world. The gods fought to forge the new. And Hades? He was there. Not in Olympus. Not in mythic paintings. But in the shadows of battle. Unseen. But unshaken. They fought side by side. Zeus with his lightning. Poseidon with his waves. And Hades, with his helmet of invisibility. Silent. Deadly. Crucial. When the war ended, the gods stood over the ruins of the Titans. A new world waited to be claimed. Hades, master of the dead. Division of the cosmos. The war was over. The Titans defeated. The skies cleared. Now came the question every god feared. Who would rule what remained? The three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, stood together at the edge of a world they had just reshaped. To avoid conflict, they drew lots. Not by sword. Not by vote. By fate. Zeus drew the sky. The clouds. The storms. He would rule Olympus. Poseidon drew the sea. The depths. The storms beneath the surface. And Hades. He drew the underworld. Not a punishment. Not an exile. But a domain just as powerful, and far more eternal. While the sky would rise and fall. And the seas would rage and calm. The underworld never stopped. Because death never sleeps. It never pauses. It waits. So Hades descended. Down through the caverns of the earth. Beyond the rivers of sorrow. Past the gates that closed behind him forever. He did not protest. He did not beg for a second draw. He simply accepted the role fate had given him. He became the god who no longer walked among the living, but watched over them when they passed beyond it. The world Hades ruled wasn't just darkness. It was order. A complex, layered realm where every soul had its place. The Greeks didn't imagine the afterlife as simple. They imagined a kingdom of zones, rivers, trials, and memory. The underworld had many parts. And not all were terrible. First, there was Asphodel. A gray, misty field where most souls wandered. Those who lived neither good nor evil lives. They simply were. They drifted, forgotten. Not punished. Not celebrated. Just echoes. Then came Tartarus. A deep, prison-like chasm below all. It was older than Hades himself. Here, the worst were bound. The monsters. The oathbreakers. The ancient betrayers of divine law. It was not a place of fire. It was a place of silence, of unending consequence. And above all, there was Elysium. A paradise. Golden fields. Still lakes. Here the heroic dead were reborn into peace. A reward for greatness in life, and purity in soul. To reach these places, souls crossed rivers. Not just water, but spiritual barriers. There was Styx, the black river of oaths. Even the gods swore by it, and faced death if they lied. Lethe, the river of forgetting. To drink from Lethe was to erase everything you once were. It cleansed. It silenced. Acheron, the river of pain. Phlegethon, the river of fire. And Cocytus, the river of wailing. And at the gate of it all stood Charon, the ferryman. Silent. Waiting for coins to carry the dead across. And beyond him, Cerberus. The three-headed hound that guarded the border of life and death. This was Hades' kingdom. Not flames. Not hell. But a perfectly balanced world. A place where every soul was placed by their life. No chaos. No escape. Only truth. Hades wasn't feared because he was cruel. He was feared because he was fair. In a world where gods cheated, fought, seduced, and lied, Hades simply followed the rules. He enforced the system. He didn't leave the underworld. He didn't interfere with mortals. He didn't demand worship. He waited. When mortals died, their souls were judged. 3 judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, decided their fate. Not Hades himself. He watched. He remembered. He ensured that balance was preserved. Those who lived selfish, violent lives, who defied the will of the gods, descended to Tartarus. Not as punishment, but as payment. Justice wasn't fire. Justice was stillness. Isolation. Silence. The story of Sisyphus proves it. He cheated death twice. Tricked Thanatos, death himself. And even escaped the underworld once. So when he returned, Hades did not scream. He sentenced Sisyphus to eternity. Pushing a boulder up a hill. Only to watch it fall. Again. And again. Not pain. Repetition. Forever. Then there was Pirithous, who dared to enter Hades' realm alive. Trying to steal Persephone as a bride. He was bound to a magical chair that held him in place. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. Not tortured. Just erased. This was Hades' power. Not flame, but finality. Not wrath, but order. He was the god of the last line. The one you couldn't charm. Couldn't deceive. Couldn't outrun. And while other gods moved across the heavens, Hades remained where he was needed most. Watching the end of every story. Among all myths tied to Hades, none is more famous, or more misunderstood, than Persephone. She was the daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest. A being of springtime. Growth. Color. And yet, she became queen of the dead. The myth begins in sunlight. Persephone wandering a meadow. Flowers blooming under her feet. But then, a crack in the earth. A chariot of shadows. And Hades rising from below. He takes her down into the underworld. For centuries, that moment has been painted as a kidnapping. A violation. A god forcing his will on a goddess. But myth is never that simple. Persephone did not scream. She did not run. She stayed. And in time, she ruled. When Demeter searched the earth for her daughter, the world withered. Crops died. Famine spread. So Zeus sent Hermes, the messenger, to make peace. The agreement was made. Persephone would spend part of the year with her mother, and part with her husband. 6 months in the world above. 6 months below. When she returned to the surface, the earth bloomed. Spring was reborn. When she descended, the cold returned. Leaves fell. Life retreated. This myth explains the seasons. But it also explains transformation. Persephone began as a symbol of life. But she became a symbol of duality. Growth and decay. Innocence and power. Light and shadow. She was not a prisoner. She was a queen. And Hades, the god who never chased worship, chose a companion who balanced his silence with strength. Together, they ruled not through fire, but through law, through presence, through permanence. In a pantheon of drama and destruction, they were the still point in the turning world. When people today hear the name Hades, they imagine a devil, a red figure with horns, a pitchfork, and a throne of fire. But that image has nothing to do with ancient Greece. It's not myth. It's history, rewritten. When Christianity rose in the Roman world, it needed to redefine the old gods, to separate truth from paganism, to claim the heavens and the hells for itself. So the underworld, once a balanced realm, became a place of punishment. And the god who ruled it became a villain. But Hades was never Satan. Satan tempts. Hades waits. Satan punishes the living. Hades receives the dead. Satan rebels. Hades obeys fate. The underworld wasn't a place of torture. It was where souls were sorted. Where justice was quiet and final. Even the gods respected it. They swore unbreakable oaths on the river Styx. Because they knew. Hades did not forgive falsehood. Not even from his own kind. He was feared not for cruelty, but for fairness. He didn't trick mortals. He didn't seduce heroes. He didn't demand temples or sacrifices. He simply existed. Where he was needed. Where no one else wanted to be. In silence. In shadow. In truth. And that is why he was replaced. Because we are more comfortable with a villain than a god who tells us the story ends. Hades may not have temples on every corner. He may not wear armor or ride storms. But he never disappeared. He transformed. You'll find him in games. In movies. In comics and art. Sometimes he's a villain. Sometimes a joke. Rarely, the truth. But even when misunderstood, Hades remains. Because every story ends. And someone must witness that ending. He appears in literature as a judge. In philosophy as a symbol of reason. In modern spirituality as the guardian of balance. He isn't death. He's what follows it. The space after the final breath. The silence after the last word. And in that silence, there is peace. There is fairness. There is permanence. In a world of noise, Hades reminds us of stillness. In a culture of excess, he teaches restraint. Where other gods ruled through chaos, he ruled through structure. He didn't need to shout, or conquer, or burn. He watched. He remembered. He enforced what no one else could. The boundary between this life and whatever lies beyond it. And for that, he was never loved. But he was never forgotten. Even now, when you think of endings, you think of him. The one who waits. The one who watches. The one who speaks only when all others are silent. He is not the god of hell. He is not the villain of the pantheon. He is Hades. The quiet one. The just one. The necessary one.